My dad has severe dementia. He barely knows who I am. Yesterday, he grabbed my arm, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "The body under the old oak tree, you have to move it before they find it." The nurse dropped her pen. The hallway of the care home, usually filled with the quiet shuffling of feet and the distant murmur of a television, went completely silent. For 3 years, my father hasn't called me by my name. He's been lost. He's a gentle, terrified man who stares at the wall, confusing me with his own brother who died in the 50s. But in that 1 second, he was back. His eyes were sharp. His grip was iron. It wasn't a ramble. It was a command. "Dad," I whispered, What are you talking about?" And just like that, the light went out. His eyes unfocused. He let go of my arm and looked past me at the wall. "The paint," he murmured. It's the wrong color." He was gone again. The nurse and I locked eyes. "Just a flicker, Mr. Harris," she said softly, forcing a smile. "His mind is playing tricks." I nodded, but my hands were shaking. I left the care home in a daze. The body under the old oak tree. We hadn't lived in that house for 20 years. The house I grew up in. The one with the enormous, sprawling oak tree in the backyard. The one with the tire swing I'd begged him to build. It had to be nothing. A jumbled memory. A line from an old movie. But when I got home, I couldn't sleep. My father was the kindest man I'd ever known. A quiet accountant. A man who read bedtime stories and taught me how to garden. He was incapable of violence. The idea was absurd, but I couldn't let it go. The next day, I called in sick to work. I drove to my mother's house. She's in a different home, a brighter one, for her own physical ailments. Her mind is sharp as a tack. "Mom," I said, trying to sound casual, "do you remember that old oak tree at the Elm Street house?" She smiled, her face softening. "Oh, of course. Your father planted that the day you were born. He said you'd grow up together." "Right," I said. "Did anything ever happen under it? Anything strange?" Her brow furrowed. "Strange? Like what? You and your friends buried a time capsule there once. Your father hit a water pipe, trying to plant roses next to it. Nothing strange, honey." "Why?" "No reason," I lied. "Just remembering." I left her, feeling even more confused. He planted it the day I was born. It was his tree. I went back to my own apartment and started digging. Not in the dirt, but in my father's old files. He'd given me power of attorney, and I had boxes of his old financial records in my closet. For hours, I saw nothing. Just tax returns, mortgage payments, insurance policies, the boring, predictable life of an accountant, and then I found it. Tucked inside an old ledger from 1989. It wasn't a document. It was a newspaper clipping. The headline was small, from a local paper. "Local man vanishes without a trace." The name was Richard Klein, a 28-year-old contractor. Last seen leaving a bar. Police were baffled. No leads. I would have thought nothing of it. But stapled to the clipping was a small dry cleaning receipt from a place called Apex Cleaners, with an address on the same street as my father's old office. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a ramble. This was something. The old house was still there. It had been sold twice, but the tree was magnificent. It dominated the backyard. I went at 2 a.m. I brought a shovel. I felt like a grave robber, like a lunatic. Every car that passed, I flinched. I started digging at the base of the tree, right where the old tire swing used to hang. The ground was soft. The night was quiet. For an hour, I hit nothing but roots and rocks. I was about to give up, convinced I was insane. Then the shovel hit something. Clang. It wasn't a rock. It was metal. My heart was in my throat. I dug with my hands, pulling away the damp earth. It was an old metal lockbox, rusted and heavy. It wasn't a body. It was a box. I threw it in my trunk and drove to a nearby park, my headlights off. With a crowbar, I pried the lock open. It was full of plastic-wrapped bundles and letters. I opened the first bundle. It was cash. Old, faded $20 bills. Thousands of them. I opened the second bundle. More cash. I opened the third. More. There must have been $50,000 in that box. And then I read the letters. They weren't from my dad. They were to my dad. They were from my mother. They were written before I was born, before she'd even met my father. They were terrified, frantic letters. They were about a man named Richard Klein, an ex-boyfriend, a man who was stalking her, beating her, a man she couldn't get rid of. The last letter was the worst. "He found me," she wrote. "He's here. I don't know what to do. He said he'll never let me go. He said he'll kill me." And then, at the bottom, a different set of handwriting, my father's. "He won't ever touch you again, I promise." I dropped the letters. I understood. My father, the quiet accountant, hadn't met my mother after her trouble. He'd met her during it. This man, Richard Klein, hadn't just vanished. I drove back to my mother's home. It was 4 a.m., but I didn't care. I woke her up. She saw the mud on my jeans. She saw the metal box in my hands. And for the first time in my life, I saw my mother look guilty. "You found it," she whispered. "Who was he, Mom?" She told me the story, the true story. Richard Klein had broken into her apartment. He was drunk. He was going to kill her. And my father, who had only been on 3 dates with her, showed up. He had a feeling. There was a fight. It wasn't murder. It was self-defense, a clumsy, terrified struggle. Klein fell. He hit his head on the fireplace. He was gone. They panicked. They were 25 years old. They were terrified. So my father, my quiet, gentle father, took charge. He handled it. He handled everything. He buried the body. He cleaned the apartment. The cash, that was Klein's. Money from his contracting jobs, probably illegal. My father buried that too. He didn't want a trace of it. He buried the body under an oak tree. A tree that wasn't there yet. A week later, they bought that house. My father, the gardener, planted the biggest oak sapling he could find, right on top of the spot. He said we'd grow up together. My mother had told me. It was a lie. He planted it to mark the grave, to hide it. My father spent the next 40 years of his life building a family, on top of a secret that would have destroyed them. And that secret, that stress, that guilt, it's what ate his mind. It's what caused the dementia. He'd spent his entire life protecting my mother, and now his mind was broken. But the one thing that survived, the one single burning instinct left, was to protect his family. "You have to move it," he'd said. He wasn't confessing to me. He was warning me, passing the torch. I looked at my mother, this old, frail woman who had been carrying this for 40 years. I took the box. I took the letters. I drove to the harbor. I threw the box into the deep water. I watched it sink. I went back to the care home the next day. My dad was in his chair, staring at the wall. I sat down and took his hand. It was frail and papery. "It's done, Dad," I whispered. "It's handled. She's safe. You can rest." He didn't look at me. He just squeezed my hand. Once. And for the first of my life, I truly understood my father. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever wondered about the sacrifices your parents made, please subscribe to the channel. We share true, strange, and deeply human stories that remind us we're not alone in the chaos. Hit subscribe. Thank you for listening, and be kind to yourself.